Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our candidates forum. We are delighted that you're here this afternoon, and thanks to our applicants for the position of city manager. We very much appreciate your interest in the city and in the position that we have open. We're going to go through a number of questions and let the candidates answer them. Kind of the ground rules are that we have 7 questions for you tonight, and since there are 3 of you, and since we want to keep this to roughly an hour or so, that would mean, if we do the math a little bit, that it's about 3 minutes per question to provide your answers. And so Kelly, our HR director, is going to give the high sign when 3 minutes have expired during your answer time, and that will be the signal to kind of get to the end. And we will start. You guys figured out, but we sat down in alphabetical order, and so
you got potential city managers up
here.
Right,
okay.
A little late.
So we'll kind of go with the Joyce Keys Lakefield alphabetical order to start with, and then so that we give everybody a chance to be first or second, we'll reverse that coming back, and then go to the Keys for the next question. So let us begin. You all have the questions, so I think that will keep me from having to repeat it to you when I get to when you're next. So let's begin. The first question is, what have you done in your career to enhance transparency with respect to local government operations and community stakeholders? So we'll start with...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is this on? Everybody got me? I'm clear. This is the switch. I need an engineer to help me with that. Okay, we're good. Off to a flying start. So first and foremost, what it says with respect to local government operations, just to be transparent, my first opportunity in local government was just a little over a year and a half ago when I was hired to be your assistant city manager and started here in January 24. But prior to that, I've served over 30 years both as an active duty Air Force officer and as a civilian with the Department of the Army, both stateside and overseas. And they're very similar in terms of operations. There's budgets, there's enterprise funds, there's general funds. The big difference is at a military installation, as we all know here at the great city of Minot and the Minot Air Force Base, is that military installations have a gate around them. Other than that, there's public services, there's public works, there's emergency services. You know, all those things that we do in the city for our stakeholders here is done on military installations, which I was proud to do for over 30 years. Ensuring transparency, I think it starts with telling our story. I was talking with Jennifer Kleen a little bit over the last week on telling our story. And it's much more than, you know, the number of potholes filled or the number of roads paved this summer. And go out and count them, but I think I counted 424 orange barrels. Well, not really, but there probably was at least that many. But it's much more than that. It's telling our story. It's our people. And that is it. It's our people. Tell the story that what our people in the city do, because we're citizens too, and we provide services. So, you know, it's just continue to tell our story in environments like this. Tell our story in our neighborhood meetings that we had this spring and summer, and we want more participation in that. Tell our story and ask for you all, if you haven't already, when you leave, please fill out the citizen satisfaction survey. As of yesterday, we had over 800 already. And so it's really just about telling our story. In the past, there's been, back in the day, quote unquote, we would do an annual report to stakeholders. I still think we can do something along that nature. We have different demographics, different generations. Some people like the written product. Some people are okay with what's online. We have to know what our citizens want and be able to tell our story. So highlight our projects and understand when you say stakeholders, it's every citizen in the city. Every citizen is a stakeholder. We're providing services to all, and we need to be open and transparent and communicate with every one of them.
Thanks, Tom, for going first. I learned from you on the microphone. I think I got it this time. So first of all, I want to say thank you for having me. My name's David Keys. I am one of the finalists. I'm originally from Louisiana, very small town. And so even to probably be up here and be considered as a candidate, I know my parents don't want me to move up here, but I'm hoping I've done them proud. In both of my stops in local government, one in Natchitoches Parish and one in the city of Duncanville, just south of the Dallas area, I have been in charge of the social media, sending out press releases, communicating with the stakeholders in the formal way. Then, of course, a lot of cities do the other formal way of a community town hall, bring people into the chambers or bring them to another city facility, and you do a town hall to ask questions about the budget. Then we put the budget out and we put the ACFR out, but then we also had a public one that we did in Duncanville that kind of broke down those financial statements to a more digestible way so that we could send them out to the community and have people actually not have to read a 200-page ACFR. I made it through about 100 of the 200 pages. I got close on my knots, but halfway. Dave disagrees. He thinks I should have made it to at least 125. But reading that's tough. If you're not a fan of that kind of information and really love digging into it as a member of the public who's very busy, maybe is running a business or has your own job that you have to go through every day and then come to City Hall and trying to figure out what we're doing over here, it's not your full-time job. We need to try and make that information as accessible as possible. So we work on the public financial report so people can better understand that. One of the things I was proud of in the city of Duncanville as well, we had a community of about 40 to 50% Hispanic, and we knew that somewhere around 25 to 35% were actually English as a second language in their homes. And so we expanded communication in our Spanish-speaking population and tried to make sure that what we were putting out targeted them as well. That doesn't go for every community. Not every community is going to have that level of communication, but I think the point is that you want to try and meet people in the way that they understand and the way that they interact with you. And so a lot of what I did as well was just get out into the community, and I would do that here. Get out, meet with the people who lead your nonprofits, your churches, the place where people go day in and day out, and try and get there and meet with them and just ask questions, listen, and explain, hey, this is what's going on at City Hall, and we're ready to get you involved. My door will always be open, even if I'm not always in it, but I'll certainly try and reach out to everybody that I can.
Great answers, I think, by everybody above. Again, I just want to thank everyone for this opportunity, the council members, the staff. They did a great job of putting this all on today. I want to thank everybody for showing up to watch us sweat up here a little bit and answer these questions. But I think that's something that we should be doing. And this first question just leads right into that, being transparent. And this is some of the things that we should be doing in front of people. We should be able to have open dialogues with our citizens and our constituents and our staff members, our council members. You know, that's how we refine these ideas and make our community better. So I think that's really important. We've, since I've been here at the city, you know, we've made it a priority to get information out to the people and the public and make it easily accessible on the website. We publish things, or we do our preliminary budget, our final budget, our annual reports, our quarterly reports, our budget to actual reports. We put that information out there, and we've tried to improve those reports over time as well. Like Mr. Keys said, numbers without the context to go behind it, unless you can interpret that information, it doesn't mean anything. So we've tried to enhance our budget booklet and even our annual report to add more graphical references where you can easily look at it and see graphically how we can interpret that information. So to make it more accessible for folks that don't do that on an everyday basis. In the past, we've done budget workshops, especially following an election where we know we have a turnover in the city council. We've made it a concerted effort to put information out there, how we create the budget. What does it mean what are we talking about when we talk about a mill levy? And why is that important? And how does that math work when we calculate what we're going to assess for property taxes? So just putting that information out there, and sometimes we just have to distill it down to a level where it's understandable and people learn things in different ways. So just to break it down a little bit and then be available to answer questions. We constantly have folks reach out, the media reach out to us, and sometimes it's just taking a couple of minutes to sit down and have a conversation and work through some of the issues that we're dealing with and explain the background or the information and how we arrived at the decision that we're making, and just be as forthcoming as we possibly can. We want to make sure that these decisions that impact our community and all of us are done in the light of day, and that everybody has an understanding of how we arrived at those decisions. So I know that we'll continue to work towards that. We're going to continue to try and make more efforts to be even more transparent in the future, but I think we've definitely come a long ways in the last 8 or 10 years to improve how we deliver that as well.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to question number 2. And in this case, we're going to start with Mr. Keys and then go to Mr. Lakefield, and then Tom will bat cleanup on this one. Second question is, can you describe your overall leadership style and approach to management?
Thank you, Mayor. So anybody that maybe has sat in the interviews earlier today that I did will already probably be able to repeat this in their sleep. But my leadership style and approach to management, especially in city government, really comes down to alignment, trust, and accountability. And so the people of Minot elect your representatives. Your representatives set the goals of the city. You adopt a strategic plan. You've got one that you adopted in 2030 that goes through 2040. And so that's the goal. We set all of our goals and our metrics and things based off of that and what the council desires and what the people of Minot want to see their city look like. So my job as the city manager is to take that and make sure that staff is in alignment with those goals. Through that, I give trust to the staff and to the department heads that they know what they're doing. They are the subject matter experts. I'm pretty good. I learn a lot, and I know a lot about a lot of things, but they are the subject matter experts, and I'm going to trust them to do it. Now, we got to make sure, though, again, that it's in alignment, and so there is an accountability, and it always comes back to what the things that we are doing every single day. Are we setting in place a process that gets us to meet those metrics, gets us to meet those key performance indicators, that gets us to achieving the goals that have been established by the council and by the comprehensive plan? If not, we have to have conversations. Conversations sometimes lead to discipline, and if so, we have to have those conversations and those actions. But most of the time with the conversations, we can get to, hey, let's get back into alignment. Let's get the metrics set in place. Let's reach those goals.
Describe my leadership style. I'm a farm kid. I grew up in this region, and I look back when I was young. I started driving tractors on the farm when I was about 9 years old. So it's a learning process. You have to learn to have a little bit of patience, because my dad had to be pretty patient with me when I was that young. But you also learn that, if you make a mistake the first time, that's probably okay. as long as you don't keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. So growing up on the farm is probably the best education you can have to prepare you for just about anything. And some of the skills you'll learn doing that is you have to be a problem solver. And that's one of the things that we deal with in our environment here with the city. We are constantly analyzing issues and problems and trying to come up with a solution that works the best for the community as a whole. I would describe my style and approach to management. I'm a roll up your sleeves and get things done kind of guy. The problem with that is you grow up being a doer your entire career, and as you move up the chain of command a little bit, you get a little bit removed from that. You can't do everything. So you have to rely on your staff to follow behind you and carry some of that burden for you, but you have to have the confidence in them to get it done. We're going to have challenges when we do that. People are going to have to learn, and that's where that patience comes in. Having the patience to have the conversation with them and say, that's maybe not the best approach or the way we should have done that. There's maybe a better way, and you have those conversations. As long as we don't have a recurring pattern of the same problems over and over again, at the end of the day, we'll be a lot better, and we'll have a lot better product and a lot better service for our citizens.
Mr. Joyce.
I just learned a lot from both of you, so thanks for that. My leadership style starts with people. Those who know me, I'm a people-first person. If I could describe it without holding up, if you had a upside-down triangle, the leadership's down here at the point, and everybody above you support. Those are the people. So I'm all about supporting the people first, getting the right people on the team, acquiring talent, developing that talent, rewarding that talent, and retaining that talent. In terms of leadership styles, from the book, a book style, I consider myself a transformational leader. I'm confident in leading change and leading people. I feel I can motivate and inspire people to work towards these identified projects that we have. In terms of approach to management, to me, leadership and management are two different things. They go hand in hand, but leadership has a slight nudge on management. Management's important. That's the budget. That's planning the budget. That's looking at actuals to budget. That's having an understanding of that. So I believe, in being results focused, being accountable, but building the team first and foremost, that can do that for all of us.
Thank you. Our next question, and we'll start with David Lakefield for this one. Our next question is, how would you go about building a cohesive team and ensure that you are collaborating with department directors and getting the best from them?
I think this was a kind of a common theme throughout this exercise today, and I seem to repeat myself a lot of times that communication is very important, and I think that holds true in this scenario as well. Just clearly communicating expectations, explaining why decisions are being made or what the challenge is, collaborating with them to come up with a course of action, and just working together to come up with the best possible solution. And again, keeping in mind the end goal. The end goal is we want to serve the citizens of this community and make our community stronger, better, more resilient, more attractive to folks from outside of this area. We want to have a growing community. All of those things are important. We need to expand the economic base. We need to address issues that we have that maybe prohibit us from doing that. We need to follow through on the commitments that we've made on a number of legacy projects. So we have to have that end goal in mind and get everybody on board and pushing in the same direction. And just, again, the communication, setting the expectations, and then holding people accountable for the delivery of those expectations.
Mr. Joyce.
Well, I think I'll just describe a little bit. When I started as assistant city manager a little over a year and a half ago, I had 3 direct reports. well, two at the time, because one of the positions was vacant. So Utilities Director Jason Sorensen, our city engineer Lance Meyer, and then we had our newly developed Public Works Operations position, of which I hired Brian Banfill. And building that team particularly, individually, I meet with each one of them one-on-one, weekly. I meet with that team, and it hasn't been so much recently, but it was every other week that we met collectively as a team, myself and those three, building that small team, a team of teams concept within the greater city, that group. I also sit in on their meetings with their department heads, their superintendents, listen to them, and I'm not the leader of that meeting, I'm a contributor, but being part of that meeting and hearing from superintendents and foremen and project civil engineers, what are they doing, what are they, just listening to them, and where can I as a leader help remove barriers and coach and teach and train them and just help them get the job done. They're the subject matter experts, I'm not, but I'm here to support them. I'm not in my office very often. I get out and about. I believe, and some people call it management by walking around, I call it leadership by walking around. So I want to get out and about. I want to meet all of our teammates. Fortunately, I'm pretty good with names, to the fact that when I get a name wrong, I kick myself for about 30 minutes afterwards. I get pretty upset because names are important. That's who you are, and I like to know people's names and have conversations with them. So I'll continue to do that. I think we're getting a lot out of our directors right now. It's been a great opportunity, and I appreciate the mayor and council for giving me the opportunity to sit in as the interim city manager. And I believe that I'm more than capable, and we have a great team that we can keep this ride going.
Mr. Keys.
Well, I think the theme here is communication. You have to have communication from the city manager to the employees, and I like to have the communication coming back from the employees to the city manager as well. One of the things that I would do is try and set up a quarterly, hopefully about quarterly, what I call an all hands on deck meeting where all staff gets to come, hopefully keep it to about 15 to 30 minutes, but they get their chance to, as I like to call it, take a shot at the city manager. Let them, I want to hear the good and the bad, what they're facing. Most of the time they're the ones that are interacting with the public or are out picking up the trash. I want to know the issues that they're facing, and I don't want to hear it from a director. I want to hear it from them directly. The second thing that I would do is what I like to call a day in the life of, where the city manager goes out and actually gets down, sometimes in the trenches with the people doing the actual work, not some of us guys who get to sit up and push the pencils around and everything, but again, your sanitation people, your water treatment plant people, your sewage people, your utilities people, get to know what they're doing, get to know their jobs. And then one of the other things that I think helps create a cohesive team, and I brought it up with the directors today during our discussion earlier, is trying to create a kind of quote unquote internal internship program where if a person in a department is interested in learning about how to do the job in a different department, that creates growth, that creates new knowledge for somebody who maybe sometimes is siloed into their own department. And so working with HR and the different directors to foster a way for people to go get experience in other parts of the department. It's one of the things that I did coming up through organizations, just trying to learn, and I think it's the best way, especially if you're trying to really break down any barriers and silos that might be there, to do that, but also give people the opportunity to learn and grow.
All right, thank you very much. We are on to question number 4, which is, can you describe for us how you would communicate and engage employees across all segments of the organization around the vision, mission, and goals for the city of Minot? And we're going to start this one. We're back to starting with Tom Joyce.
It starts on day one. Well, actually, it probably starts before day one. It starts in the recruiting process. We want to bring in talented people that aren't just talented in that skill set, but they bring on the behaviors that fit our team. So, that's important when we're recruiting talent, that they're bringing on behaviors. A lot of what we do, especially in our entry-level positions, we have such seasoned operators, we can train them. So I talked about attitude earlier. If we get the people with the right attitude, we're not going to have a problem with them. And then on day one, worked with HR over the last 6 months. We've changed our new employee orientation a little bit. It's not where I would like it to be, but it's a start, and it's baby steps sometimes. So we spend the first 15 minutes or so talking about our vision, our mission, our pride values, our city aspirations. I talk to them about that page, 71 on the employee handbook that has attitude and punctuality and public relations skills as employee responsibilities. I still chuckle while that's on page 71, vice page 1, but we can work on that later. So that's important. Meeting, as you said, all hands on deck kind of thing, David. To me, I call them employee town halls. Same concept. Hear it from the top. Have a Q&A, be open, tell them why we're doing certain things, understand they're not going to be happy about everything. When I was a new employee, I wasn't happy about everything either, but I appreciated when leaders would hear me out. So I would definitely implement that. We've implemented something kind of in between that this past year called Management Communication Information Meetings. We've had 50, 60 folks, foremen and up, some key individual contributors. And so we're getting the word out that way, but I think we can expand that a little bit to an all call of sorts. I want everybody to feel that they can participate in that. And to the point where really that would be the place of business. Unless you have a good excuse for not being there, that's where we expect you to be, because we want you to hear from various leaders on the team, and we want to hear from you. And I mentioned early in the day, but again, part of that is recognizing our people. So we're going to be implementing quarterly employee recognition the month of October. We're going to gather in rooms such as this one. We're going to recognize all of our nominees, and that'll also give us time to have Q&A with our team and in a more informal way, and answer any questions and concerns and talk about things that are on their mind.
I go back a little bit to what I gave for my answer in number 3, which is the engagement with the employees and constant communication with them, making sure that we're always aligned. But the one thing that I would add, and I think Mr. Joyce made a great point there about trying to find the people with the right attitude. One of the things that kind of comes up with that, though, is that sometimes the attitude that somebody brings may not be anything to do with what they're doing at work that day. And it may not be anything that comes from the leadership that's coming down. It may be something personal that is going on in their life that they just haven't told anybody about, that they're struggling with. And so sometimes it goes just a little bit beyond, hey, are we hitting the goals? It goes to, and I'll stress this with the directors, knowing your people and finding out. Say, hey, you seem a little different than what you normally are. What's going on? Is there something I can help with? Do we need to get you to HR and let you talk with HR? Do we need to get, I'm assuming you'll have an EPA program here. Do we need to get you to the EPA where you can talk with somebody that can maybe help with something that's going on? And that goes a long way in helping foster that trust with your employees. It also goes a long way with letting them know that I'm not just setting up here giving you the direction and expecting you to come to work every single day. I also care about you as you, and I want to make sure that we are tweaking whatever we need to tweak, if it's personal or whatever, that gets you back to your best performance if you're not getting there. Now, if we can't get there, we address it and we move on, but we want to try and make sure that people feel heard, valued, and that we know the root causes sometimes of why they may not be giving their best, so we can get them back to giving their best.
Again, back to communications. But I think we can do a better job in mixing up how we communicate across the entire organization. I think we do a really good job communication at the top of the org chart, with department heads and city council members, other department heads, the city manager. Sometimes that information doesn't always get distilled down to the folks that are working on the front lines, so to speak. And those people are extremely important too. They're the ones that do the work. Not everyone can be the boss. So sometimes that we need to at least show some interest in those folks and what they do, and show that we understand some of the challenges that they face with what they're doing every day to make our community better. So I think sometimes just getting out of the office and showing up at a construction site and just observing firsthand what they're dealing with. And I know last winter we had a stretch where we had a ton of water main breaks, and it was when we had a really cold snap, and it was brutally cold out there, and they were out there for 10 or 12 hours replacing a main water line. Those are brutal conditions when you're wet and it's extremely cold. And you know what? I wasn't out there in the hole repairing that water line. It was somebody else that was out there. And they need to know that they're appreciated too. And they're the unsung heroes of this organization. We couldn't function if we didn't have all of those folks helping us out along the way. So sometimes I think we have a lot of meetings, but instead of just departments at a time, sometimes I think we need small groups of related departments, folks that are working on similar projects. And I think we can identify a lot of issues that we have if we're looking at designing a section of street. If we have somebody there from the street department and engineering and maybe public works, we're looking at designs or how we're going to approach a project. It'd be nice if we could identify some of those problems or pitfalls early on in the process, instead of when the design is complete and we're ready for construction and somebody says, well, wait a minute, we don't have something quite right, or the traffic signal's in the wrong place. So sometimes I think just being a little more collaborative and breaking down those barriers or department silos and getting people to work together on the project, I think we're just more efficient and effective. So again, communication.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move on to question number 5. And in this case, we'll start with Mr. Keys and then Mr. Lakefield, and then back over to Mr. Joyce. So question 5 is this: what methods do you use to communicate with the city council and keep everyone informed? Start with Mr. Keys.
Mr. Lakefield, I think it comes down to communication, right? Is the theme we got going on here. It's actually in the question, and it's a great question because, as a lot of us know, communication with the city council, and unfortunately for the council, you're constrained by your open meetings laws. You can't just always have a frank discussion with everybody on board. It's not like calling a staff meeting and having your staff there and being able to kind of openly have a conversation. Your council has to have those conversations in public, and it's fortunate and unfortunate for them, but I think it's very important for a city manager to still communicate to the council, even not in a public setting, when they can. Give them the information of things that they know are coming down the pike, that they know the council is going to have to vote on at some point. Make sure that the council has the information that they need when the residents contact them and say, hey, why did we shut down is it the 3rd Street Bridge for 2 or 3 months? Why did we do that? And if I'm, as the city manager, not proactive and saying, council, here's the reason we're about to shut this down, we're going to put out our blitz. We're going to make sure that we've got the press releases ready. We're going to try and meet people. But if before that press release goes out, that bridge gets shut down and a council member calls me and goes, hey, what's going on? I hadn't done a good job. I need to make sure they know as soon as something like that happens, that an emergency like that happens and something that is going to impact their residents, the people that vote them into office, that they then hire me, I got to make sure I'm trying to communicate those things. I want to foresee every little possible thing that, and I won't be perfect, I won't get them all, but I'm going to try and make sure that my directors know. That's going back to having the all hands on deck from the staff. Everybody from the bottom of the organization to the top is communicating upwards so that I can let council know, be ready for this. We're going to do this. This is how we're going to approach it. You may have to take a vote, and if you do, at least you're going to have the information when you get there.
We want to make sure that our city council is kept up to speed when good things happen, but especially when something doesn't go right. They need to have a little bit of a heads up so that they don't get caught off guard out in public with something that they have no idea has even happened or what the context is behind it or what the circumstances were. So obviously, whenever possible, we want to get that information out to the council. Of course, there's rules that we have to follow with open meetings rules and those types of things. But that communication is a two-way street also. And one of the things the council's done the last couple of years is they've given us some of our direction in the form of the mission statement for the city and our PRIDE acronym. So mission statement, serving our neighbors, building our community with pride, and of course PRIDE meaning professionalism, responsibility, integrity, dedication, and excellence. So they've kind of given us our marching orders and what they expect for us, and we've implemented that into all of our memos that come before council. What aspirations of the city does this course of action meet? And you know what? We should be able to point it back to one of those aspirations and why we're doing this. That's kind of the directive we're given from council. So that two-way street, we're obviously going to have to update those things from time to time as the directive from the council changes. But again, just keeping open those open lanes of communication and following the directive that's been laid out in front of us.
Over to me.
Yes, sir.
So this kind of goes back to not just the golden rule, but the platinum rule. We have 7 members of council, and probably each of them prefer a different way of communicating, and that's fine. I know some of you text first. I know some of you email first. I know some of you call first. So I'm gonna respond to that, as best I can. I mentioned today when we met during the interviews that if I'm the one who is selected to be your next city manager, I want to meet with you all early on. I think these work sessions that we've had in this room over various topics the past year have been very informative. It's a great way to talk to everybody at the same time. Yes, they're open to the public, but there's no secrets here. We're just trying to make sure we establish operating norms so we can communicate effectively. So that would be my first desire, is to meet. What are our operating norms? What's the expectation? Et cetera. If it's important, it's important, but that might not be urgent. If it's urgent, it's urgent. But as long as we're all on the same page there, that would be what I want to know. Me personally, I would prefer face-to-face discussions when possible. I think that's the best way to handle issues. When you have an issue, go meet with a person, really understand what their problem is. If you can't meet with them in person, talk to them on the phone. But the more that you get to know people, and we're all in this age, we're all carrying an Android or an iPhone. Once you know somebody pretty well, you can text and you get it right away, right? It's early on. If you don't know people well, you're sending a text. It's like, what do they mean by that, right? So again, I'm willing to communicate with any of the receivers. It's a two-way conversation, which is best for them to best understand and receive the message and then be able to communicate back.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Moving on, we are on question number 6, and we're going to start with Mr. Lakefield and then go to Tom Joyce and then to Dave Keys. So question 6 is, describe your experience in developing a strategy and direction for an organization, and how do you ensure the projects and priorities of the governing body are implemented?
So one of the things that we have here at the city that's a resource for is our comprehensive plan, and that basically lays out what we anticipate being the direction of the city into 2040, I believe it is. So that plan's a couple of years old at this point, It's still fairly fresh, but this is a dynamic environment that we live in too. So we need to keep evaluating that and make sure we don't lose sight of what the overall goal is. So we have to have a consensus with the leaders, the community as a whole, not just the city council, the entire community, and what they think is important and what is the priority in the community. We do that from a number of sources. We do surveys and engagements with members of our community. I think there's some QR codes floating around on some of the tables in the lobby that to ask you to participate in the latest community survey. So if you take a picture of the QR code, you can help us out with some feedback today before you leave. But again, just identifying what the priority is with the community and addressing those priorities with the constraints that we have from the financial perspective. And again, keeping in mind that it's a fluid, dynamic environment and that we're going to have to make some changes along the way.
Mr. Joyce?
I've been fortunate to have a good number of experiences where I've been able to either lead or help facilitate the development of a strategic plan for a number of organizations. And over time, there's various methodologies, but the one that that has worked for me the best is what's referred to as the balanced scorecard. And balanced scorecard starts with customer satisfaction. And what do the customers feel about? What are our financial results? What's our organizational capacity to do this? Do we have the right teammates on board? Do we need to develop them more? And then look at organizational and operational efficiencies. We earlier this year started process improvement and innovation teams, and we're slowly getting charged to do more and more of those, and we have a really good cohort. But I would use those 4 areas as we assess anything we're doing and moving forward. We met with council about a year ago, December and January, and we went over the city aspirations, and we started to develop a plan that was complemented, but not exactly the 2040 comprehensive plan that was focused on the city aspirations. And frankly, we're not anywhere near where we should be. And part of that, I would say, is my fault, but we're just not where we should be. And there's more training that we need to do with our team to kind of get that ball moving. I think what we have done is we're so aspirational, and maybe members of council will remember this. We have so many great aspirations that we have too many darn great aspirations to do at one time. If everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So I would like to get back with council over the next 3 months and sit down and refine those a bit after sitting down with the team and doing a self-assessment of where we are 9 months after we started and what are some areas of improvement that we can help move that needle a bit more.
So Mr. Lakefield and Mr. Joyce both touched on it. It really goes back to the 2040 plan and to the council that sets the overarching goal and starts to set your priorities. And I'm gonna make a horrible joke here, but honestly, if you select me as your city manager, y'all will have done the easy part before I ever even start. You will have adopted a comprehensive plan that you're working to implement, and you will have passed a budget that I'm just gonna have to deal with when I get through. So that makes it easy on me because the budget is the second part of that priority. It's working with council, it's working with your staff to get that set and say, these are our priorities for the coming year. And in that framework, what you then do is start working with your staff to say, how do we get these implemented? How do we implement this year's budget? And then what you start doing is planning for the future years. We know we're going to spend this money. Let's start planning on what we're going to need to do as we accomplish these metrics to get to these goals for next year. And that starts as soon as that new budget goes into effect, which I think here is January 1st, if I'm correct. I know you do it in August and then you pass it in October, and then I think it goes, Texas is weird. It's August and then September, and then you start on October 1st. And so it's nice to have a little bit more time to really kind of flesh it out and get it approved. But that budget is the start at January 1st of what you do that year. but it's also the guideline for what you start planning the next year, 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road. And you need to make sure that everybody in your organization is thinking in terms of that. One of the beautiful things about city government is most of the time it's cyclical. It's on an annual cycle, and so you know things are coming. You know that I've got to get certain things to the council on an agenda at a certain time. I know y'all recently implemented the policy of 7 days before the meeting to get that going so that council has time to review it. But that's where you start working with staff to say, we know certain things are going to be coming before the council. We know certain things are going to need to be done every single year at the same time of year. Let's go ahead and get those pinned on the calendar. Let's start working the small things that we can do to make sure we're on time with all of that. And then let's start working on some of these other projects that we've got.
Thank you very much. We are on to question 7, which is the final question. Question 7 is, as the next city manager, what would you say is the steepest learning curve related to this position? And where would you hit the ground running? So sort of a two-part question. What's the thing you got to get learned, and where would you be ready to rock and roll? So we're going to start with Mr. Keys on this one, and then Mr. Lakefield, and then Mr. Joyce will wrap it up.
The steepest learning curve, to be honest, is everything. There's a I don't know what I don't know aspect to it. I can do a lot of research beforehand, and I did, to read up on the city of Minot. But the reality is that you can look at all the plans, you can look at maps, you can look at projects that are being accomplished right now, but until you're actually standing there and you're talking to people that these plans affect and getting their perspective on the things that they want to see in the city, learning the council, learning the staff, and then sometimes even learning about yourself and how you really truly lead when you're the top person at the organization. And whether the style that you've grown accustomed to in Louisiana and Texas is going to fit in North Dakota, those are some of those things where you got to have that self-reflection and know what you need to learn to grow. And I think the thing that I would do to hit the ground running is just start meeting as many people as I can, work on a listening campaign of just getting out, meeting people, hearing what you have to say about Minot. I want to hear the things that you love, the things that you hate. Hopefully you don't hate a whole lot. I know the winners. But learn all of those things. And I mentioned it in the panels today, give me some feedback. I love getting feedback. If my style isn't working for you, let me know, and I'll change what I can. Most of the time, I'm going to stay pretty much how I am, though.
I'm going to say I think the steepest learning curve will be navigating the political landscape. And I mean that in a positive meaning. And that's dealing with or forging relationships with other community partners that we have. And I'll give an example of that. We recently were awarded the installation readiness grant, but we have a lot of community partners that we'll have to work with at Ward County, surrounding counties, folks at the Air Force Base, folks from the OLDCC that's sponsoring the grant. So we have to navigate all of the different needs for all of these different political entities and work together to better prepare this entire community for what is coming in the future. And then working with our partners, state legislators, other communities, when we're down asking for funding for some of these projects that we're working on, we can't do that all by ourselves. We're a partner in these projects, and we need to be able to navigate the political landscape to further those projects and get some of them across the finish line. So I think that'll be the biggest thing. And I've been fortunate in my role as the finance director that I've had the opportunity to participate in that legislative process. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable. It can push us out of our comfort zone a little bit. But when you understand why you're doing that, to have the opportunity to go down there and testify in front of the legislature for a bill and show them, the reasoning or the rationale that you bring or your perspective on an issue that can affect not only the community here in Minot, but the entire state, is actually pretty powerful, and it's pretty, rewarding to do that. Or when you show up and you get invited into the leaders' chambers to have a discussion about a topic because they want to know what you think about it. And, it can be a little bit daunting sometimes, but you have to be honest and straightforward, explain your process. But again, we can always be better with that. And sometimes not knowing all of the connections and who we need to talk to and to be able to navigate that is going to be important. And we need to continue to forge those relationships with our other community partners.
I tell all my teammates it's important to be self-aware and know your strengths. We all have strengths, and I say run with your strengths. There's areas for improvement. It's good to know what they are. You can work on those. So I'm going to start with strengths. So for me, my strengths are leading people and leading change. That's where I can hit the ground running with this team. I had the opportunity for the first year and a half as assistant city manager, getting to know the people, getting to know the processes, getting to know the issues. The last 2 months, again, with your faith and confidence, I was able to serve as your interim city manager. That only continued to grow, and it kind of escalated because I had an opportunity to meet with a number of our community partners and leaders as the interim city manager, and I definitely intend to continue to do that. So that's where I can hit the ground running. I have plenty of experience overseeing public works, public safety, airport operations. Where am I maybe a little behind the eight ball? Like I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of experience and financial acumen in federal government funding, but not in municipal financing. And that's where I'd be leaning on experts like Dave and Jenna to better understand, as Mr. Keys talked about earlier with the annual comprehensive financial report, 200 pages of charts and words. And, I'm sorry, but I don't know. I think we might only have a couple CPAs in this room, if that. They might be able to get it, but for the rest of us, we need to be walked through. It doesn't mean we're not smart people. It's just not what we work with day in and day out. So that's where my number one gap would be, is with municipal financing. But like everybody else on the team, I rely on subject matter experts, and over the years, I've been pretty good at asking probing questions and learning, and I'm confident that I would learn that rather quickly.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, applicants. I think we should give these guys a round of applause. They all did a great job. And they're even giving each other a round of applause, so that's good. It's great to have a number of citizens here tonight, and we have a request of you. There are little pieces of paper like this that have a QR code on them, and Brian is passing some out, and those will give you the opportunity to provide feedback at the end of the event, so that we can get some of your opinions on the candidates and how you think they stack up. So please, if you would, do that survey. I'd like to thank all the citizens for coming tonight. This is an event where we want to try to get exposure prior to hiring a person who is in an extremely important position for the city. I'd like to thank the press for coming to cover the event. We appreciate you being here and covering our event. Also, I would ask this of all of you who are here. Go out and talk to your friends and neighbors. Tell them what you heard and saw, and make sure that you can help them take an interest in what's happening here at the City of Minot. So with that, we'll conclude this portion of the event. but the candidates for the position will be here, and you're welcome to visit with them and have some one-on-one conversations, and we'll close out with that. So thank you all very much.